Donald Trump has a real problem with black people. Even though he recently said he would win the black vote, he's actually polling somewhere between 1 and 2%, statistically zero in some individual states. A recent poll in Ohio had Trump polling zero. Now, Lewis, that doesn't mean no black people are voting for Trump in Ohio. What it means is statistically it didn't even make it to 1% in the poll, and that's bad enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it'll happen, but I'm hoping at some point he'll reach negative 1 or 2% with the black vote.
So Trump decides to go after the black vote. He's going to court the black vote. And like most things in the Donald Trump campaign, he seems to end up doing the opposite of what's logical. He decided to go make an appeal to the black vote in front of yet another mostly white crowd and just said untruth after untruth about black people. I don't know that Trump said anything accurate about black people in this speech, other than the fact that he seemed to acknowledge them as black people, right? He seems to be talking about them as if they are part of Homo sapiens. That's the only relatively accurate thing in the entire discussion here. I will play the clip for you. This is Trump speaking in Dimondale, Michigan, which is 96.4% white, and he made a horribly misinformed appeal to black people. Take a look.
What do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose?
Right.
Wow. I think I see a black woman.
I say it again. What do you have to lose? Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good.
Oh.
You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed.
Right.
What the hell do you have to lose?
He then doubled down on the insane, going on the Jeanine Pirro show on Fox News, which we could do a couple hours on that show alone. I mean, that show is insane. So he goes on one of the most heinous and depraved shows on one of the most heinous and depraved networks, and it's totally Looney Tunes. He said black people have no education either. Take a listen.
Of them, and it was in my speech, and I really sort of just was reading the statistics where you have 40% that are living in poverty, 58% of the students, I mean, the young people, they can't get jobs. And, it's just like a total catastrophe. The unemployment rates, everything is bad. No health care, no education, no anything. And poverty is unbelievable. And then I said, hey, wait a minute. Vote for me. What do you have to lose? I can't do worse. You can't do any worse than what these people have been doing, and I will do better. And actually said that if you vote for me the next time in 4 years, I'll get 95% of your vote because you're going to see such a big improvement.
When you say you're living in poverty, you're clearly implying or saying that poverty is something that afflicts most or a majority of the group, in this particular case, black Americans. Otherwise, why would you say it that way? Yes, black Americans have a higher than average poverty rate, around a quarter compared to a 10% overall. But he's saying that, basically poverty is just, most black people are poor, so why not vote for me? He said black people are sending kids to failing schools as if that's the fault of black people, that schools in disproportionately black areas have problems. In fact, Trump, part of his platform is to take away federal funding from education, which would only make those so-called black schools be even worse off.
Yeah, well, it's part of the whole Donald Trump thing that I can improve everything.
Yeah.
Everything will be better under me. And just telling people that they're completely destitute and have absolutely nothing to lose doesn't seem like the best strategy.
When you say you have no jobs, you're clearly implying or saying that unemployment is something that afflicts most or a majority of black Americans. Otherwise, again, why would you say it? And yes, unemployment is higher among black Americans as it is among Hispanic Americans. In terms of black Americans, it's roughly double the national unemployment rate. But it seems, Jason, like Donald Trump doesn't know that most black people are not poor and most black people have jobs. I mean, it's like a caricature of the population that he seems to be focusing on here.
Well, I guess when you say your message is, well, it just can't get any worse, try me. I mean, that pretty much says it all to me right there.
You have to sort of outline a caricature of how things are if your message is, I can't possibly be worse than where things are right now, because that's you're depending on things being a disaster in order for that to appeal to anybody.
Yeah. And certainly this is a disastrous place we're in right now. But who really thinks that Donald Trump is going to turn things around?
For black people, as he says. If you believe Trump statistics, the next question becomes, how will Trump's policies on, for example, healthcare or funding for education or his view on voting rights, none of those positions will at all help the black American community. Trump says, well, we need to create job opportunities. I agree with that. The problem is his policies won't actually do that. I have amazing video of new Republican strategist, the new campaign manager, one of the new campaign managers for Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway. Before she was working for Trump, she demanded that we see Donald Trump's tax returns. So she goes on TV and she is asked, hey, you called for the release of Donald Trump's tax returns when you weren't running his campaign. Certainly you're standing by that, right, Kellyanne Conway? No, she's not. Take a look at the video.
Let's talk about Donald Trump's tax returns. Back in April, you said on CNN that you want Trump to be transparent.
Right.
Let's listen.
I want to ask you about this alliance between you first, Kellyanne, between John Kasich and Ted Cruz, this alliance, shall we say, that Donald Trump is calling collusion. Is this fair game? Are they playing by the rules here?
Oh, absolutely. It's completely transparent. Donald Trump's tax returns aren't. I'd like to see those be transparent.
Okay, now you're in charge of Donald Trump's campaign. Given that, and given how you feel, are we going to see Donald Trump's tax return soon?
So now that I'm on the inside, I know something I didn't know then, which is he's under audit and what that means. And he has said very clearly, and I back him up completely, that when the audit is completed, he will release the tax returns. And let me just say something about transparency. It comes in many different forms, Dana, as does accountability.
Yeah, bad
and
Hillary.
as does truthfulness. And we can't imagine going up against a less transparent, less accountable, more sort of rigged and corrupt individual as our political opponent than Hillary Clinton. She's had a terrible week when it comes to being transparent and accountable, whether it's the revelations of the pay for play in the State Department that I know that the CNN is very much on top of, and your reporting is, Dana, as well as what happened at the Clinton Foundation, which is a big hot mess.
And we are talking about that for sure. But in this particular interview, and these questions are about Donald Trump. And you mentioned the audit. According to his lawyers, the years 2002 to 2008 are no longer under audit. So would you release those tax returns?
No.
No, I would not. And this entire tax return debate is somewhat confounding to me in the following sense.
She just doesn't get why people want this. Well, the reason people want the tax returns is the same reason you wanted them a couple months ago, right? I mean, there could be so much in there. Being under audit doesn't prevent you from releasing your tax returns. But more importantly, everybody knew Trump was saying he was under audit, and that's why he wasn't releasing them. How did it take her becoming part of his campaign to learn that? He's been saying that for years. And let me also add, it usually takes a little while for the IRS to audit you. The odds that Trump's 2015 tax returns are under audit are almost it's almost non-existent probability.
I almost feel bad for her
Right.
that she was caught earlier saying that on video.
Yeah.
And someone like her doing so many appearances, it's hard to keep track of what you say.
Sure.
I get it. And it's hilarious.
Basically, what Kellyanne is saying is, I'm on Trump's payroll now. You don't want me getting fired, do you? Or maybe what she means is, and this is, I think, actually even more likely, now that I'm on the inside and I've talked to people on the campaign, I know why Trump absolutely cannot release those tax returns because they would be so devastating compared to just continuing to not release them. And that's really what I think is going on here. Send me your thoughts on this. We will take a break and be back with more right after this. At least a few victims of the Louisiana flooding seemed thrilled to see Donald Trump show up there with Mike Pence in Louisiana. They acted like Trump was actually doing something to make a difference. And here's people saying, we knew you'd be here, Donald. Take a look.
Take pictures with us. We knew you'd be here, Mr. Trump.
Here, guys, let's stay together. We're gonna get
We
lost in
knew
the
you
scrum.
would be here for us.
Well, yeah, he's not going to miss an opportunity for just a blatant pandering photo op. Anybody could have predicted Trump was going to show up there.
Yeah. And mission accomplished. It worked.
So then Trump, well, before I get to the video of Trump, quote, helping, I'll show you. This is a guy who teared up at Trump showing up in his private plane with a Make America Great Again hat.
To Donald Trump, what'd you tell him?
Well, I wasn't really able to tell him anything. I said, give me a minute. If he can give me a minute, I can give him 4 or 5 hours. But he didn't give me a minute yet. But hopefully one day he will. If he sees this, call me.
Are you happy that he came here?
Oh, yes, sir. Most blessed with it. Yeah, doubt. No, Donald Trump all the way. Everybody.
What did you lose, and what does it mean to have Donald Trump here?
Let's see.
Yeah.
I didn't lose anything compared to what a lot of people lost. I'm okay. It's materialistic things. They can be replaced.
And having Trump here, did that mean a lot to you?
Oh, yes, yes. Because, hell, America's got to wake up.
Right. So here is the big photo op Trump spending basically 45 seconds handing out items, just helping to move items off of the back of a truck and into someone else's hands. And this is the entire thing. This is Trump helping. Take a look.
Got it? Whoops. We got to pass hand off. Here you go, Billy. I need right here on this side. Excuse me. I need someone on
A lot of work Trump is doing there, huh? He is absolutely moving boxes of supplies.
I think he's starting to break a sweat.
Yeah. Very somber and serious Donald Trump showing up here. Yeah.
God, that's awesome.
So anyway, I don't know. I mean, is that helping? I've seen so many people posting about how Trump is helping. The guy is in a suit wearing a Make America Great Again hat. How much help do you really think he's doing in flood recovery? What about writing a check, Donald? But that's really been the problem for Trump, right? He talks a lot about the charity contributions he makes. Washington Post investigation turned up that he actually maybe at most had donated $10,000, a tiny, tiny seedling of a fraction of what he claimed to have donated. That's really what he could have done, written a check.
You'd think with all the money he saved by not paying people who worked for him, he could be more generous with charity. Well, he is helping in the by definition.
In the literal sense, yeah. I guess he did help for a few minutes there. Right-wingers, Jason, are furious because, Obama's on vacation during this time. He's not doing anything. First of all, presidents can work from anywhere. Bush was on vacation during any number of train wrecks and disasters that took place, and you didn't hear the Republicans criticizing him for that. But President Obama did actually declare a disaster. He issued a disaster declaration, which allows Louisiana and people in Louisiana to apply for federal aid. Isn't that such a flaccid criticism? Well, where is Obama? He's vacationing. Trump is here with his suit passing around soap.
Well, I'm sure Obama is actually doing more by not being there and actually like communicating with people and setting up organizations to get things done. And Donald Trump just shows up and moves a box from side to side.
Write a check, Donald. That's
it's not a photo op for Obama.
Yeah, that's exactly right. President Obama is not taking this as an opportunity to be photographed holding soap boxes. Donald Trump's campaign basically stands for almost nothing in terms of policy. And one of the few elements of his campaign that we could even remotely call a campaign proposal is his completely asinine and half-baked immigration plan. And all of these terms like proposal and policy and plan, I'm using these in the loosest sense of the dictionary definitions of the words. He has this idea of rounding up 11 million undocumented immigrants, paying for what it'll cost to round them up, paying to deport them all, building a wall with Mexico that he says Mexico will pay for. Mexico will not pay for the wall. We would have to pay for the wall if that were to happen. And then letting people back in if they meet certain requirements, of course, other than the rapists and criminals, which from Trump's hyperbole on this, seems to be most of the people that are trying to come in from Mexico and point south. It seems that Donald Trump is now even flip-flopping on that issue, which is insane to me because when you go to Trump rallies and you ask people, what policy of Trump's do you like? Most people have no answer at all. The few people that do say, well, I like that he's going to get the illegals out and he's going to build a wall. And even on that issue, Trump seems to now be softening and saying, possibly, he won't even be doing the deportations. Let's start first with a clip from CNN on Sunday when one of his there's been a revolving door of campaign managers. His new campaign co-manager, Kellyanne Conway, was asked, he's still deporting people, right? And she said, that is now undecided. Take a listen.
Let me play something from what Mr. Trump has said previously. Listen to what he said back in November.
Going to have a deportation force, and you're going to do it humanely and
Are they going to be ripped out of their homes?
Can I tell you, they're going back where they came. If they came from a certain country, they're going to be brought back to that country. That's the way it's supposed to be.
So does Donald Trump still support that? A deportation force removing the 11 million or so undocumented immigrants?
What he supports, and if you go back to his convention speech a month ago, Dana, what he supports is to make sure that we enforce the law, that we are respectful of those Americans who are looking for well-paying jobs, and that we are fair and humane for those who live among us in this country. And as the weeks unfold, he will lay out the specifics of that plan that he would implement as President of the United States.
Will that plan include a deportation force, the kind that you just heard in that soundbite and that he talked about during the Republican primaries?
To be determined.
Okay.
Wait. Everything now is negotiable. It's to be determined. The guy who says that they're all getting kicked out by force is suddenly potentially changing that plan because, by the way, most people realize that the plan is completely impossible and unaffordable. So then, of course, after Kellyanne Conway opens the door to this, the questions go to Donald Trump. Are you flip-flopping on one of what I guess is the three major campaign ideas, ban Muslims, which he's already completely changed his position on, deport immigrants and build a wall? Trump himself insisted yesterday, I'm not flip-flopping. He went on Fox News last night. He said, the first thing we're going to do if and when I win is we're going to get rid of all the bad ones, then adding that everybody else will go through the existing process we have, which the Obama administration is using, and saying that that's what we're going to do. We're just going to enforce that with a lot more energy. Does anybody realize that of the few things the Trump campaign stood for at some point, this was one of the major ones? And even on this, Lewis, Trump is saying, actually, we may just do what Obama's already been doing, just with higher levels of energy. What does this guy actually stand for that would be different?
Trump knows he can say whatever he wants, but he knows, and his staffers and managers know, that he can't do whatever he wants. But still, apart from this, it's still shocking to me that a year ago, maybe even more, he was saying, well, I'm going to outline my plans soon.
Right.
And he's still saying that. Now he's the nominee, and he's still saying, well, at some point in the not too distant future, I'm actually going to give you details about my plans.
Oh, sure. It's coming up anytime. As soon as he figures out the best way to couch it to not lose the nativist xenophobic vote that he has coalesced and catalyzed. Another example of this, Jason, is last week or the week before, Trump came up with the brilliant idea of coordinating attacks with Russia and other countries against ISIS, which happens to be exactly what President Obama has been doing. On so many issues, he bashes Trump and Trump bashes Obama and he bashes Hillary, and then basically goes back to, I'll probably do what they're doing, just better and with more energy.
So the next flip-flop, the major flip-flop, he's going to, if he gets elected, which isn't going to happen, he's actually going to change the Democratic Party. That's his next flip-flop.
Yeah, he's going to change the Democratic Party from the inside as a Republican. You're convinced he won't win. I mean, you're saying it much more. I'm saying 22 of 23 recent polls say he's losing, but you're actually saying he's not going to be president.
And what's the one poll? Fox News, I'm going to guess?
It was like LA Times USC or something like that. That's the one poll right now that says Trump is ahead by one, which really isn't being ahead. I mean, it's the margin of error. Yeah. So anyway, yet another one of the mainstays of Trump's supposed campaign platform, which, by the way, is a joke, falls apart. Interesting. We'll see how the nativist xenophobes react to that. Hey, Donald Trump is now going hard against the hosts of MSNBC's morning show, once again accusing the co-hosts, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, of being, quote, neurotic and a mess, saying both of them are total clowns, and he's now threatening to tell the, quote, real story about them. Here's a couple of tweets that Trump sent out yesterday. The first one is, tried watching low-rated Morning Joe this morning. Unwatchable. Morning Mika, meaning Mika Brzezinski, is off the wall, a neurotic and not very bright mess. He then followed up that tweet with another one with a threat. Someday, when things calm down, I'll tell the real story of Joe Scarborough and his very insecure longtime girlfriend, Mika Brzezinski, two clowns. Why, all of a sudden, did Donald Trump start tweeting threats about media hosts, which, by the way, should uniquely disqualify anyone temperamentally from being president of the United States? Apparently, he didn't like this. Take a look.
He's had a great week. I think he's been on message. He's shown maturity as a candidate. I think that he's getting into a groove. I think he likes the new style that he's been out on the campaign trail producing and speaking of. So I think he's done great.
Everything's awesome.
Everything's awesome.
This is the part I don't understand, because I think this is you just have to look at this as an opportunity.
Mika's completely right, sarcastically saying, oh, sure, Rince, everything is just great with the campaign. Obviously, the campaign is not doing great. They're losing 22 of the last 23 recent polls. And if that, think, Louis, what it says about a presidential candidate. If a host merely saying, yeah, things aren't really that great, right? If that makes it so you take time from campaigning to tweet threats to media people, you are uniquely unqualified to be president of the United States.
And the threat was totally empty. It's one of those things where Donald Trump, and he's done this multiple times, will say, I know what's really going on here, or I have this information that I know that nobody else knows, and I'm going to tell people at some point. He's got nothing. And
I expect to hear what he knows right when we're going to finally get the real story of Obama's birth certificate, which has been years in the making now.
And when we hear details of his economic plan or ISIS plan or trade plan or a plan for the wall.
All I know is it can't get any worse.
Yeah. This is hardly the most inflammatory thing Joe and Mika have said about Donald Trump, too.
Well, there's been this sort of off and on relationship between Trump and the Morning Joe people, because remember when the leaked audio caught Trump talking with Mika and Joe during a break, and it looked like they were all very buddy-buddy. Remember this?
What do you have after this?
I make a speech, get on a plane, make a speech, working.
Well, I tell you what, the Bloomberg poll, all the polls out today look great in South Carolina. All of them.
Yeah.
But I'm being hit. They're spending $75 million on negative ads on me over the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Are they catching on at all?
No.
What do you think? Are they catching on?
No.
They're vicious. They're spending a tremendous amount on negative ads on me.
No. You know what I thought was the kind of wow moment was the guy you brought up on stage.
Yeah, that was good.
We played it several times this morning.
We played it up against Obama.
Both guys. Both guys.
What it is, we played Obama first.
The young guy
and then
was
we
the champ.
played the guys.
I saw it. I watched your show this morning. You have me almost as a legendary figure. I like.
No, I tell you, this morning, what we basically said today was we were completely wrong about the
Totally.
debate. Yeah.
I thought
I did really well on the debate show, I have to tell you.
I didn't. Yes, Alex?
3 viewer questions.
You did not, right?
Oh, my God.
But then, after being very buddy-buddy, Joe Scarborough, just a couple of weeks ago, actually said that Trump didn't seem to understand why he couldn't just nuke countries. So things going in a different direction with their relationship. Take a look.
Several months ago, a foreign policy expert on the international level went to advise Donald Trump, and 3 times he asked about the use of nuclear weapons. 3 times he asked, at one point, if we have them, why can't we use them? That's one of the reasons why he just doesn't have foreign policy experts around.
Trump asked 3 times.
3 times in an hour briefing, why can't we use nuclear weapons? With that.
Be careful, America, and be careful, Republican leaders.
So General Hayden,
your party is blowing up.
I want to ask.
So I get that there is some tension here, but I go back to the main question. If a presidential candidate is threatening media people on social media, that is not someone that should be president of the United States. Period. No further discussion is required. If I'm wrong, let me know on Twitter @DPakman. Last week, we did a story about the clearly bogus Donald Trump medical letter talking about how he had done astonishingly well on every test that was done back in December. We did a detailed report on it. The story did well. We estimate a total viewership of about 350,000 views across all platforms for that story. A ton of emails came in about it. And all of a sudden, corporate media is getting interested in the story, Louis. I turn on CNN last night and there's a panel discussion on Don Lemon's show about the trustworthiness of Donald Trump's medical letter. Looking at reporting of it today, countless websites talking about it. And now that I've had a little more time to look into this medical letter about how fantastic and tremendous Donald Trump's medical state is and how he's winning again and again with his status of health, it's even sketchier than we reported last week. So let me get you up to speed. Let's first put up the original letter, and I'll just quickly remind you of all the issues for it. Number one, the letter starts with a typo, "to whom my concern," which is just weird for such a short letter. The letter has a non-working web address where when you go to that website, there's just no website there for the doctor who supposedly did this examination. The doctor, number one, included an email address, which is weird because you don't want to get emails about something like a letter like this because HIPAA laws would prevent you from saying anything more. But it's also weird that the email address listed is a personal Gmail address. Imagine, hi, I'm the CEO of Ford Motor Company. I'd like to do business with you. Please email me at markfield0236@hotmail.com. No, it doesn't make any sense. So come on. And then in addition to that, Lenox Hill Hospital has a division of gastroenterology, but for some reason, the signature of Trump's letter refers to the gastroenterology section, which Dr. Harold Bornstein is not even a part of at Lenox Hill Hospital. And lastly, the entire language of the letter, where tests are described as only positive, when in medical language, positive means a test has confirmed a diagnosis or condition. And of course, lastly, referring to Trump as potentially the healthiest president ever, when there is no way that Harold Bornstein, MD, examined all other presidents and would have any way of comparing Trump's health to those other presidents. So every news site has basically been pointing out how ridiculous this entire thing is. Those were the problems we already reported to you last week. We now have even more insanity to report to you. A number of sites have gone back to look at Donald Trump's social media posts when this letter came out. You might remember I told you last week that Jacob Bornstein had actually been deceased for years at the time of the publication of this letter, and the letter was signed by, at least in this version, Harold Bornstein. It turns out that Donald Trump posted to both Facebook and Twitter that this was a letter signing off on his tremendously positive health and results, signed by Jacob Bornstein, a doctor who had been dead for years at the time this was released. Now, these posts have been deleted from the internet, but thanks to something called print screen, there are still records of these. And here's the Facebook post that Donald Trump put out back in December saying, "I am proud to share this report written by the highly respected Dr. Jacob Bornstein of Lenox Hill Hospital, stating that I am in excellent health. Unfortunately, Dr. Jacob Bornstein had been dead for years at the time that Donald Trump published to Facebook the assertion that this dead doctor, Lewis, had signed off on how great Trump's health is. This is completely bogus, and we actually need to see Trump's medical records. All the debunked conspiracies about Hillary Clinton's health, we have no idea what Trump's medical records actually say, and we have no idea what Trump's tax returns actually say. We have nothing about Donald Trump. That letter, at this point, can we say it is absolutely bogus and fake?
I'm comfortable saying that, yes. And I'm far more interested, though, in the tax returns than I am to Donald Trump's medical records.
I agree.
Because I don't have any conspiracy theories about Donald Trump's health, but if he has to fake a letter...
It's odd.
Yeah. Why do you have to fake the letter?
It doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, this story completely blowing up. We need to demand not only the tax returns, but because Trump himself has put out what seems to be a clearly fraudulent letter, we also need to figure out what the hell is going on, as Donald Trump would say, with that medical and health situation. The Fox News sexual harassment scandal has escalated even more, and it now has pulled in Bill O'Reilly as well as former host Andrea Tantaros. I'll give you the background. It started with a lawsuit from former host Gretchen Carlson, who alleged she was sexually harassed and asked to do all sorts of things by Roger Ailes in order to continue her position on the network. She says that it was basically a boys' club, misogynist, sexual harassment, totally normalized sexual harassment situation. 20 other women then came out of the woodwork. Megyn Kelly jumped into the fray saying, yeah, this actually does happen. And it led to Fox News chief Roger Ailes resigning in shame, but with a very, very nice, reportedly $40 million golden parachute. The latest is that former Fox News host Andrea Tantaros, a right-winger, a conservative talker, not someone we can write off as some kind of safe space Gloria Allred third-wave feminist, right? We're talking, Lewis, here about a right-winger. She has now filed a major lawsuit where she claims that Roger Ailes sexually harassed her, that other high-ranking executives created a culture of persistently abusive behavior, and this is where it starts to get even more interesting, it mentions Bill O'Reilly, asserting that Bill O'Reilly once asked Tantaros to stay with him at a, quote, very private place in Long Island and expressed a desire to see her as a wild girl. The lawsuit also mentions former Massachusetts Republican Senator Scott Brown, who Tantaros alleges made sexually inappropriate comments about her, including once grabbing her around the waist when she was buying lunch. Scott Brown responded to this where else but Twitter, saying, as a survivor of sexual abuse, I would never perpetuate language or actions as described in the Fox complaint. The actions referenced are fabricated. Listen, if sexual harassment and misogyny at Fox News surprise you, you're probably uninformed enough to be a regular Fox News viewer. There's nothing at all surprising about this, Lewis.
Or you work for Fox News. Right. But the people who work for Fox News are some of the ones making the complaints here, and these are people who have been with the company for a long time. What's the goal here? They're well paid, right? I mean,
although there are some Fox News staffers, according to CNN's Brian Stelter, who claims to have spoken to some Fox News staffers on the condition of anonymity, they feel that the allegations made by Tantaros are sort of exaggerated. They're not totally buying it. Not really proof of anything. We have allegations, we have a resignation, we have 22 women at this point who have similar stories. Now, if you're surprised or shocked that Bill O'Reilly is mentioned, recall that he has had sexual harassment problems of his own, settling a very high-profile sexual harassment lawsuit leveled in 2004 by a producer named Andrea Macris for reportedly more than $2 million. In order to avoid having to admit any wrongdoing, he was charged with talking to his producer about his personal sexual fantasies, his masturbation, her masturbation, vibrators, sometimes reportedly appearing to be pleasuring himself during the conversations with Andrea Macris. This is all so confusing to me, Lewis, since Fox News is the only news network that's really advocating Christian morality and Christian principles. It's shocking to me that they would have these issues.
Dave, are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
You might be being a little sarcastic. Yeah.
So to summarize the full list of Andrea Tantaros' claims, I'll put this list up for you to take a look at. She says that Roger Ailes allegedly would refer to Fox News hosts as gay, so fat, and a Puerto Rican whore in one case. As I mentioned, suggests that Bill O'Reilly allegedly suggested a private meeting as his home to see her wild side. She made these Scott Brown allegations that he made sexually suggestive remarks on set and also touched her in a way she didn't like. Also claiming that Fox News ran their PR machine with an aggressive campaign to smear her once she started complaining. And Fox executive Bill Shine allegedly advised Andrea Tantaros to just let the allegations go. We will see where this leads. This does not seem to be going away, Lewis. We thought, well, maybe with the Ailes resignation it'll go away, but we've actually seen it become an even bigger story since then.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine there are many more people waiting in the woodwork to come out and...
You think the 22 might be the full lot of them?
It could be,
yeah.
But that's substantial. Ultimately, is this going to hurt Fox News and lower viewership?
No, I think a lot of their viewers will chalk it up to a liberal media conspiracy or something.
Yeah, or just some type of misogynistic excuse.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They've actually already, it's funny, I've noticed other corporate media outlets, they do mention this story sometimes, but they're pretty light about it. Almost like they say, we're going to play kind of nice with the other networks. And it's actually making it even harder to make the case that this is all a so-called liberal media smear, because actually corporate media has been sort of light-handed on this.
Yeah, well, if I had to guess, I'd say that this is happening in far more places than just Fox News studios.
Yeah, well, that would be another reason why other media outlets may not want to be too harsh, because they may not want the investigations turned on to them. After the break, we will speak to the great Chris Martenson. It's been a couple years since he's been on, and I really look forward to speaking with him. Let's talk about Bill Nye the Science Guy. CNN brought on Bill Nye the Science Guy yesterday to talk about the horrific flooding that we've been seeing in Louisiana, even in more inland areas of Louisiana, as I told you, that don't typically flood, that don't require home insurance. If you own a home in those areas, at least 13 people have died, 60,000 or more homes have been damaged. And we've been making this a story about climate change, because that's really what we're talking about. And it's important to distinguish between individual weather events and broader climate change. But as I've said it before, I probably feel like a broken record at this point. When we see climate change, we are going to see more erratic weather events. The weather events themselves are not the climate change, but it will be a sort of symptom and consequence of climate change. Bill Nye, you could tell during this 5-minute interview, there was something he wanted to say, and he was sort of holding back. And then at the end, during this interview with Chris Cuomo, he drops it, and it's accusing CNN of having a climate-denying meteorologist on the air. Let's take a look at the video.
Breaking. You would not need to have a military on the other side of the world protecting oil fields. People would not be as motivated to set oil fields on fire if we had renewable electricity here.
A big issue that we see
in the first world, or the
we
West.
see hanging it over lots of parts of life. Let's see what happens coming out of this.
You know, here at CNN, you have essentially a climate change denier meteorologist, and knock yourselves out. But this is a big problem, and it's not going to go away.
A bigger conversation for another day. Bill Nye, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, not something we're going to talk about today. So Bill Nye didn't mention any names, but it's pretty clear he's referring to CNN meteorologist Chad Myers, who does have a track record of making comments about climate change. He once said that it's just very arrogant to think that humans could actually do anything on the planet to impact the climate, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever I hear that, whoa, that's a different conversation for a different day, I always think those will be that will be the death knell of the human race. Hey, you know what? That conversation, that's a conversation for a different day.
Like those facts and those figures and all that reality of every day. Yeah, that's another conversation for another day. Clearly.
Now, in Chad Myers' defense, he went on Twitter and he actually made 2 tweets about this. The first one, which I will put up for you here, Chad Myers said, "Not me, moved to climate change in 2009, and then actually following that up again with another tweet where he said, what did he say? This one is not it. But anyway, he added, "A scientist can be swayed by data," and I was. So I have sort of mixed feelings about this, Rachel. On the one hand, some people are saying Bill Nye is hugely courageous. He went on CNN and he said to them, "You are part of the problem. You have this climate change denier on the air." At the same time, you could make the argument that Bill Nye showed up uninformed, not realizing that Chad Myers no longer supported those climate change denial ideas of 2009 or 2010. Hero, courageous, ignorant, uninformed, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because there was an interview. So he was prompted in this interview, but he did say that he wished that climate deniers, there would be a law to punish them. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
In another interview.
Exactly, in another interview. So would that be a violation of free speech then?
Yeah, some people are writing to me and they're like, you know, the optics are that Bill Nye showed up and he did a really great thing. But if you actually consider that Chad Myers has changed his view on this, and number 2, that once Bill Nye called for punishment for climate deniers, and what is that? I mean, that when we talk about violations of free speech and sort of thought police, when I hear a punishment for climate deniers, I understand punishment or taxation for companies that are emitting carbon into the atmosphere. I sort of get that legislatively. I never got clarification on what Bill Nye meant, Lewis, about a punishment for climate deniers.
Yeah, legal punishment, perhaps not. Should we persecute them? Absolutely. And while he may have gone a little overboard here, or been a bit misinformed, he's using his celebrity and his influence to help fight this false equivalency issue that corporate media has when it comes to climate change, and that's massively important.
If nothing else, Jason, can we praise Bill Nye? Because by doing this, he was at least taking a risk that CNN would blacklist him and that he wouldn't be allowed back on. And to a certain degree, is there some courage in that?
I'd say certainly. I mean, to actually stand up for the truth, and it's so easy just to go with the big dollar money, propaganda that's out there and ride that wave. But back to the other point, I mean, I think what he's looking for is like a Game of Thrones-esque shaming, where everyone has to be walked down the streets and everyone yells shame at them. Maybe that will get them to actually realize that, this actually is reality. I don't know.
Not a fine for what you say, but publicly ostracizing people. I'm so sick of this "that's a different conversation" thing that we sometimes hear on corporate media, because the conversation basically was, hey, what's happening with these storms and floods? Will there be more? What can we do? And then the expert says, well, what we need to look at is global climate change, and CNN is arguably part of that problem with this meteorologist. Oh, that's a bigger issue for another day. Now it's kind of actually the issue we're talking about today, isn't it?
Right. I kind of just feel like that's a cop-out to not have to address a larger narrative that's going on.